For 21 seasons, the Dallas Mavericks and Dirk Nowitzki have been synonymous with each other, and as the sun sets on the franchise's greatest player, another teenager from overseas has risen to take that mantle in Dallas for the foreseeable future. That teenager's name is Luka Doncic, the 19-year-old wonder kid from Slovenia. This is the Sly Hooper YouTube channel, and today's video will be about the NBA's next star, Luka Doncic. If you followed the NBA draft and the draft blogosphere, 2018 was widely considered a two-player draft in terms of the best chance to grab a future superstar. Luka Doncic and DeAndre Ayton were on top of almost every mock board you could find. Yeah, you had the occasional board with Jaren Jackson at number 2 or Mo Bamba at number 2, but having Doncic and Ayton in their own tier, with Doncic being typically ranked as the top prospect, was the norm. Doncic was unique because he had been playing professional basketball since he was 13 years old and quickly established himself as the best player in EuroLeague, which is the second best basketball league in the world. Doncic had been playing against grown men and former NBA players since he was a wee lad. Just look at the list of accomplishments he already has in his career. It had been a long time since a prospect as decorated as Doncic entered the draft, and yet, despite all of that, Doncic was not selected in the top 2, and was later traded on draft night. Let's actually rewind to that fateful night. The Suns made it no secret for about a month leading up to the draft that they were taking DeAndre Ayton with the first pick, and the Kings, for some reason, elected to take Marvin Bagley, and Doncic fell to the Hawks at number 3. With the Mavericks waiting in the bushes with the 5th pick, owner Mark Cuban made his move, and traded the draft rights for Trae Young and a top 5 protected first-round pick in 2019 for the draft rights to Luka Doncic. Just like that, the trajectory of the Mavericks, whom had won a combined 57 games over the last 2 seasons, had changed dramatically. Doncic has exceeded every possible expectation so far this season, and not even the biggest Doncic fan could have seen this coming. Luka Doncic has not only been the best rookie so far this season, he has been outright one of the better players in the NBA already. Doncic is averaging 18.2 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 4.1 assists on a 56.1 true shooting percentage. The only players this season to have at least those averages include Giannis, Durant, Anthony Davis, LeBron, Paul George, Blake Griffin, Westbrook, Victor Oladipo, and Nikola Vucevic, who is ballin' right now. Let's go even deeper. Here are the list of players who have put up at least the same stat line as Doncic in their rookie season. 5 of those 6 players are Hall of Famers. On a team full of established NBA veterans with pretty lucrative contracts and a point guard who was selected in the lottery in 2017 hoping to be the future of the Mavericks, it's actually Doncic who has quickly established himself as the best player on the team. It's actually pretty clear to me. You can already tell by just watching Mavericks games that it's Doncic's team. Doncic has a 26.8 usage rate, and I will go over this later on, but I feel like he could actually do more. Doncic is shooting 39% from 3 on 6 attempts per game, and I don't even think that's really a surprise. Everyone and their mothers lamented the fact that while Doncic shot 33% from 3 during his career overseas, it was well known the types of shots he was getting were tough, and usually off the dribble because defenses would always have their attention focused on him. Doncic has actually had seasons where he has shot the 3 pretty well, and with NBA spacing and playing with better NBA players, we're seeing the type of shooter he really is. He has a soft shot, a set shot that he could get off whenever he wants, and at 6'7" with his high release, it really makes it difficult for defenders to contest, and he can hit 3s from every angle. He shoots 50% from the corners and 38% from everywhere else along the 3-point line per cleaning the glass, and just an FYI, cleaning the glass doesn't count into the quarter half-court heaves or full-court heaves as 3-point attempts. Doncic is middle of the road at finishing at the rim, but his in-between game is already far advanced for someone his age. In the floater range, which is 4 to 14 feet, Doncic is shooting 42%, which is in the 73rd percentile among his position. He has all kinds of floaters, fakes, and finishes. A lot was made about Luka's athleticism and explosiveness, but what was lost in that discussion was his size to get those shots off and how he has had to compensate for his lack of elite quickness by mastering shots in the floater range against grown men since he was 13 years old. Doncic will get better at finishing at the rim with time. He only shoots 60% at the rim, but the concerns about his athleticism and explosiveness, while valid, was completely overblown and over-discussed. It's not like he's Kyle Anderson levels of slow or has Joe Ingles level of explosion. And FYI, those two players I just mentioned are established in the NBA. Doncic knows how to take advantage of his body on switches, he is skilled at starting and stopping his movements, he has a great feel for the game, and he already has an elite NBA move, his patented step back. On defense, he does get bullied on the post and on the occasional switch, but he's not a complete disaster on that end. He actually uses his positioning and IQ well to help him out. I actually think Doncic can be a net positive on that end of the court someday. Doncic and Ben Simmons have been the two best passing prospects to have come into the league this decade, so it's hardly surprising that Luka's passing has translated to the NBA. He is a special passer, and it's not just the 4.2 assists per game. He sees the next step in a play before it happens. He averages over 9 potential assists per game, which means he is finding the open man with an open shot, but that teammate just can't knock it down. His impact passing the ball is also amplified because he can score from any spot on the floor. He is also really adept at running pick and roll, understanding angles, getting the defender on his hip as he snakes his way through the pick, and he understands where his teammates are while running pick and roll. Luka is also very creative in how he manipulates the defense before firing off a pass, look-offs, jump passes, seeing the help defender coming off the corner, and with his size, he can make the cross-court passes that we have seen star players make at an increasing rate over this decade. Luka can be a lead initiator, a secondary playmaker, or someone who moves the ball as a third cog in whatever offensive set the Mavericks run. He can fill all kinds of roles, and he can even play off other point guards. His skill set is tailor-made for today's NBA, a power guard with size, shooting, and supreme skill. I mentioned earlier that Luka Doncic has a 26.8 usage rate, which is good for one of your best players on the team, but Doncic is the best player on the Mavericks, and he could do more. Look at the usage rates from every player on the Mavericks roster. It's too close to each other. JJ Barea has the highest usage rate on the team, then Doncic, followed by Dennis Smith and Harrison Barnes. It's pretty wild that a rookie who is already putting up a historic stat line could actually do more. So why does it feel that way to me? I can think of a few things. One, as mentioned earlier, there are established NBA veterans on this team with big contracts. There have been so many times this year watching Mavericks games where Doncic will call for the ball and either a teammate is too late finding him or they just ignore him or wave him off and initiate the play themselves. I think there's still a little bit of an adjustment period for guys like Wesley Matthews, Harrison Barnes, and even DeAndre Jordan, who is new to the team, as they realize that this 19-year-old kid is actually the best player on the team. They don't want to take a back seat to the rookie, but sooner or later they're going to have to. The second reason is that Rick Carlisle's offense likes to utilize multiple ball handlers, and with that they have to try to get reps for Dennis Smith Jr. and Doncic, which I don't mind. Dennis Smith Jr. might have the biggest adjustment to make because he was drafted in 2017 to be the Mavericks point guard of the future, before a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity led to Luka Doncic. Smith actually should be one of the highest usage players on the team. I still think he could be a good player and a fine fit next to Doncic, despite everyone doing the inevitable thing where they give up on a 20-year-old point guard, even though we acknowledged beforehand that young point guards take time to develop. That cycle is really stupid. Anyway, as the Mavs continue their season, I think they need to heap even more responsibility onto Doncic. I think his production would skyrocket while maintaining his efficiency. I think Luka Doncic can be an absolute superstar in the NBA and a future MVP candidate, and I felt this way before the draft. While we make fun of the Hawks for trading away Doncic, we forget that it was actually the Kings who had the second pick in the draft and actually passed on him. I know Kings fans are sick of hearing this, and some of the Kings fans are even developing a little Stockholm syndrome, but this is why teams tank, to get someone like Doncic, or DeAndre Ayton if you're the Suns, which to me at the time was the only player you justified taking over Doncic. This is why the Mavericks pounced on the opportunity when it became clear that teams somehow still questioned Doncic as a player. After being one of the slower teams in basketball last season, the Kings are top 3 in pace, and they are also second in three-point percentage on 10.7 makes per game, which makes passing on Doncic all the more absurd. Look, Marvin Bagley was 6th on my hypothetical mock board. I think he could be a good player, but for me, he has to check off a lot of boxes on his developmental curve in order to be a franchise caliber player. Luka has already checked off a lot of those boxes. He could shoot, he could pass, he could be a lead ball handler, he could play off ball, he is super competitive, super confident, has already made clutch plays, has played winning basketball in a professional league, and the guy already plays like he belongs in the NBA. Plus, he still has upside. That was one of the most confusing criticisms I heard about Doncic leading up to the draft. People assumed he was a finished product because he played overseas professionally. He is only 19 years old. He is 8 years away from reaching his physical prime. Once he gets entrenched in NBA training and nutrition, he will get better. Once he gets a few seasons under his belt and learns the nuances of playing NBA basketball, he is going to get better. Honestly, I hope Doncic is the one player that finally kills what should have been killed a long time ago, the Euro player stereotype. More than 20% of the players in the NBA are international now. Players should be evaluated independently and not come with the Euro label. I also hope it kills the thought of, oh, he played in a league full of failed NBA players. That's the point. Doncic has played against former NBA players, players from other pro leagues, and actually, he played against and with current NBA players in the Eurobasket tournament and when Real Madrid would play NBA teams in preseasons. Meanwhile, college prospects play against competition where 97% of the players don't even sniff the NBA. You mean to tell me that Doncic skeptics would have been more comfortable or more impressed if he had succeeded versus the SEC or the Big 12? Man, get the hell out of here. Anyway, putting aside the snark for a second, I'm not bashing Marvin Bagley or Trae Young, and in Trae Young's case, I've actually come around on him. But when we look back at the 2018 draft 10 years from now, we're going to be questioning why on God's green earth did the Kings and the Hawks pass on Doncic. Let me know if you agree. Give the video a like, and if you like this video and like to talk hoops in general, subscribe to the page, and thanks for the support.